Hello there, ladies and gentlemen! And those who do not conform to the gender binary. Welcome to the stream. It's a pleasure to have you all here. I have had a long day at work, but something wicked this way comes, and that wicked thing is to tell you how I'm gonna fuck with the lives of my beautiful player characters today. Well, technically I'll fuck with them tomorrow, but you know what I mean. So welcome all my viewers. As always, this is your warning at the beginning of this stream. If you are not up to date on the Snowocalypse, you probably shouldn't watch this unless you're completely fine with spoilers, because I will literally at the beginning recap everything that happened, and then talk about some other stuff that's going to happen in the next one, and then some stuff that may happen like 3 sessions down the line. Stuff gonna get crazy here. So yeah, be warned. If you are new to the stream or to the YouTube channel, you can find the rest of the VODs on the YouTube channel. Go there, watch the thing, come back, watch this, be amazed. So yes, without any further ado, let's do a quick summary of what happened in the last session. So in the last session, I'll include the little conversation we had with Dr. Tessia's man. The Wintermute agents. Well, first of all, Lux went off in a car and got to the edge of the great snowstorm surrounding London, which usually scavenges things like medical supplies from old abandoned hospitals and things like that, and discovered basically that there was no one left in this town. At all. They just vanished. So she kind of had a look around, found like one ominous drop of blood, but no real signs of a struggle. All of their stuff still there. There was even a cereal bowl or a soup bowl or something like that lying on the table still with food in it. Like, they just up and left. Seemingly. But then they left without their winter gear, which is very strange. Lux returned to report this to Tudor, who was also dealing with the fact that he has no money and needs to buy medical supplies for his town with no doctor and rapidly ailing people, including himself, who's got basically bruised ribs. Excuse me 1 sec. Like that. At which point, he kind of realised he basically had enough money to either pay the mercenaries who protect him, or for medicine for his people. And not both. Until he gets offered a deal by the devil, and by one of the agents of Wintermute, who was like, "Yo! We can give you loads of medicine if you let us, screen your entire population, and then let us experiment on some of them to optimize them for future life." Which point Lux has been beginning to realize that her condition from this wolf bite is advancing a little more aggressively than she might be a fan of. So she's very keen on this whole idea. Yeah. So they were back and forth, bit to and fro on this count. Meanwhile, Midnight went to kind of play ambassador to the mercenaries, try and talk them into maybe delaying their need for money. And ended up kind of getting a job offer / a beating from Ella, and also seeing a mostly dead Rourke. But she was like, nah. And was about to try and wanted to try and beat the shit out of her, but she's really wounded, until the voice of Rachel spoke in the back of her head and went, "Yo, you want some help with that? Because I could totally make this happen for you." The next we saw of Rachel was as she tormented Stein through the streets of Cecil Road, where he went and got his visor back, tried to punch a man in the face, then ran away, got back to his little garage, only to find where he left Preed the doctor, there was the corpse of Ella, and where he, when then Midnight burst through the door holding Ella's shotgun to Preed's head, which she promptly proceeded to remove. So yeah, that was a thing, a really rather large thing. And then from there we discovered that, yeah, Midnight had basically murdered her way through Ella's compound, using horrific levels of physical strength. And yeah, there was a rather tense standoff as Tudor and Lux tried to hunt Midnight down, scared she was going to do it again, and Stein tried to protect her because he's deeply in love with her, and Midnight battled with the fact that she just brutally, utterly eviscerated a woman, murdered a man, and she has no recollection of how or why, just that she woke up covered in their blood. It was a pretty gory episode, all in all. And it ended with the tension boiling to a hit boiling point as Stein jacked his augury device into the Engine of Doom. And we felt giant psychic waves coming off of it through amplified by assorted portals opened by certain other powerful psychics. And then we faded to black. That's what we're going to pick up. So, first of all, here's an interesting little tidbit. Midnight's super awesome powers, where she had tattoos that repaired her arms and legs as they broke and split apart, and her physical strength that could shatter walls. Would you like to know how I did that mechanically? Would you? Would you? Because it's really fucking stupid. She has basically natural 2 armor, and her fists do 3 harm. And are messy. That's it. That's all it is. Everything else is flavor. The way I justify this is that she technically does not have any special armor for bullets. Just that Rachel's psychic will overrides the normality of her flesh and just repairs things super fast. Just forces repair. There's actually an interaction with her tattoos that I'm quite interested in, because I figure tattoos are an expression of art, which is an expression of emotion, right? So the thing we discovered about the Psychic Maelstrom a few episodes ago was that the Psychic Maelstrom is essentially just rampant floating emotion, and it coalesces into souls. And when a person is born, they get a soul, and when they die, the soul scatters back out. That's what makes Rachel so special, and as we'll eventually find, East Harrow as well, because they are both beings who exist with no body, but still a cohesive soul, but constantly exposed to this swirling mass of emotion surrounding them in the Maelstrom, which kind of driven Rachel completely fucking batshit insane. But yes, while in a physical body, she can manipulate emotions mostly, so she can use those tattoos work as a perfect medium for her, because they're expressions of art and emotion in themselves. They mean a lot to Midnight, and as such have a lot of power invested in them in the sense of the Maelstrom, so she can use them to repair things. And the 3 harm thing is basically she just goes, yeah, your body can't handle this level of damage, but fuck it, and just forces Midnight's body to do just wrong things, like exceed the human limitations. Like her arm literally explodes when she punches things, like blood vessels pop and bones shatter, and because she then just repairs it, which totally isn't healthy. Like, she's probably shortened Midnight's lifespan by about 10 years in the space of that one fight. It's not good for you. But then again, psychic powers, having that abilities there probably lengthens it by another 50. Who knows? But yeah, so that's the kind of mechanical way that she has 2 armor, which is essentially equivalent to, a bulletproof vest. She's pretty tough now. Although, to be fair, only when Rachel activates a psychic power through her. By herself, she's still just Midnight. And then also, her fists basically do the same amount of damage as your average assault rifle. She's kind of a pimp when she's got Rachel in her. But then again, she also has to roll weird to not completely be taken over by Rachel, which is, a bit of a Debbie Downer. I'll just go to this page. I realise we should probably be looking at pretty pictures and such. Pretty artwork, yay! Yeah. So that's the kind of mechanical way that all of Midnight and Rachel works. Everything else is just flavour I laid over the top. This is what you can do in your own games if you want to play them. You just literally go, okay, what do I want this statistically to do, and how can I then flavour those stats to make them cool? I want her to be resistant to bullets. I want her to basically be immune to small arms fire. Well, that means she needs to have a minimum of 2 armor. How can I make 2 armor out of a natural psychic thing without just being like shields? It's like, okay, well, rapidly expanded healing powers based upon forcing the body to do things it should never do. Ta-da! She can't really do that without Rachel there, no, Sue. So, unless she learns how, which would be pretty hard, because Midnight is not a powerful psychic. In any way. She's literally the opposite. She's psychically stunted with -2 weird. Her brain doesn't do these things, which is what makes it so easy for Rachel to overpower her. Her will can't extend that far into the emotional spectrum, which I think actually, in some ways, says a lot about Midnight. Just so we're clear, like, that Midnight basically has no power over the emotional maelstrom around her. And the way she treats people, and the way she can literally overcome trauma in seconds, I think this says a lot about her. The way Chip is very specifically playing her as a sociopath. Like, she's cold. Utterly. And that -2 weird is almost represented that, because she has no ability to interact with the universe. Like, she doesn't feel, basically. I didn't actually think of that until this session. That's pretty fucking cool. Me and Chip apparently roleplay on the same wavelength. Fantastic. But yes. So the other thing. The giant engine of doom. The wub 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 machine that's now on Stein's head. So here's my thoughts on what the original apparatus, his augury device, was. Because it's a Golden Age relic that allows him to use the powers of augury. Right? Somebody asked, but why is it that Midnight got those powers like healing and not somebody who has a higher weird thingy? Basically that's because Midnight got a small amount of, like, goop landed on her as a result of a roll made in the very first session, which is basically Rachel's in. And Rachel originally did it because she was going to be like, okay, she's going to use Midnight to murder everything. She wants to cause chaos at all times. She still wants to kill Cecil. She knows Midnight's close to Cecil. She starts to work her way into Cecil. We then did this thing of it requires extensive, like, contact between subject and Rachel for her to advance her powers through them. Preferably, like, intimate physical. Which was when she was possessing Preed and she cared for Midnight's wounds. A doctor pulling a bullet out of your leg is... I mean, it's one definition of intimate. There's a lot of physical contact, and a lot of touching, and a lot of... Well, yeah. I don't want to get into the euphemisms because it's a little bit gross, but, you know. When you're a surgeon and a patient, you've got that physical contact required. And then we just needed Midnight to either call on the power, or for Midnight to be in such physical difficulty that she'd, like, pass out, and I'd just go like, okay, here's my hard move. You're a fucking monster now. So, then she pops up and murders everything. And she was like, I'm gonna see what this does. Rolls her weird. Completely fails. Rachel's like, in the back. And gets behind the wheel of Midnight. And drives her straight through like 6 people. 6 people? 4 people. Yeah. So yes. Anyway, the engine and the headset. So the headset, I think, is basically before the apocalypse, psychics weren't really a thing. Like, there was a few of them here and there, like, probably the same almost as we have today. Like, some people were like, oh, okay, maybe there is legitimacy to this somewhere. And they built this thing to amplify psychic ability. Which would probably only just about bring them up to the level of a not quite as good as, like, Tudor or Stein person. Like, with this fancy headset and all the electricity in the world and tech in the world, they could just about do interesting psychic things. Read the Maelstrom. And then 6 billion people died, and their souls were released into the Maelstrom. Turning a Maelstrom from, like, kind of normalized balance between life and death into just, like, here's death. This energy, this soul power, this emotion just floats throughout the whole world. Powerful psychics just pop up everywhere. Rachel, Stein, Tudor. So when Tudor puts this thing that was originally designed to turn a basically just above normal person into a psychic, and he's like, so you have basically normal, you have psychic, you have, like, Stein's starting point. So he puts on this amplifying helmet and goes, off the scale of what would normally be measured, which is why he can do augury well wearing it. And then he juiced it with what is basically a nuclear reactor in a box. And yeah. Not to mention that Rachel has a small amount of her hooks in Stein, so she can kind of use her psychic powers in there as well. And I'm basically going to define this. I'm going to show you all the augury move right now, because I'm going to use a lot of it as inspiration for how the next session's going to play. Let me scroll to it. So, augury! Let me zoom in. So by default, nobody has access to augury, but a hoax's followers or a savvy head's workspace might give it. When you use your followers or your workspace for augury, roll plus weird. On a hit, you can choose one. Reach through the world psychic maelstrom, something or someone connected to it. Isolate and protect a personal thing for the world psychic maelstrom. Isolate and contain a fragment of the world psychic maelstrom itself. Insert information into the world psychic maelstrom. Open a window into the world psychic maelstrom. And then you roll and get to choose two of these things. It'll persist for a while without your actively maintaining it. It reaches deep. It reaches broadly, it's stable and contained, no bleeding. So here's my understanding of this thing. This thing reaches way fucking broadly into the maelstrom. Like, this effect is going to be huge. Like, as in, entire town consuming huge. It reaches super deep into the psychic maelstrom. Like, he's transcended psychic power here. And yeah, he's going to have, like, tapped into something really fucking powerful. And it's bleeding like shit. Like, anything with any ounce of psychic power is entirely aware of all of this. Like, it's just everywhere. Which is really cool. I'm really excited. Because he basically just didn't bother with safety checks and went boop, boop. With both him, this kind of quiet guy who wants to make everything run right, who cares about people on some level, but is also deeply, like, I don't know what the word is, neurotic, springs to mind, as does terrified almost, like, just, and yeah, he's not a well-balanced person, Stein, as we saw in the last session. Like, in fact, that was him pushed right to the edge, but he's still at the edge, even more so, and then he did this. His emotional state is pretty frazzled. And Rachel's in there too. Connected to the power source. Just flooding out all of that bad juju that she does. Because she hates everything. My understanding of Rachel is that she was sold to Wintermute, Dr. Tessie at Wintermute, by Cecil in some respect. I don't think she remembers that. I think all she remembers is that she died hating Cecil. Physically, her body died hating Cecil with every fibre of its being. And somehow, with her powerful psychic nature, and the experiments done to her by Dr. Tessia, she managed to hold herself together with that purity of hatred and anger and just trauma, and basically became a ghost. And a powerful one. And she is basically just returned to Cecil Road to haunt and or murder people. And so she torments people with their darkest fears. And yeah, she's in there. So here's how I think the next session is going to play out. As this reaches so deep into Psychic Maelstrom, it basically has access to every memory that ever was, has ever been, is around in this, not just in Cecil Road, but I mean like from the Golden Age, from the pre-apocalypse. It's everything is in there. So I think this starts with, because the first person connected to it does somewhat care about everyone who's caught in it. Everyone's in paradise. They're in their own personal, ideal lives. Free of, like, all of the things that they hate. Possibly even free of the horrible world they live in. Like, they could be they're dreaming, essentially, of a world that isn't frozen or awful. Where they don't have to worry about a mad mayor turning the oxygen off or anything like that. Like, for Lux it might be the open road and a pretty girl in midnight. For Stein it might just be a nice place for him to get some solitude and tinker with machines and never really be bothered. Tudor may be king. He might be something else entirely. Midnight, well, we'll see about Midnight. She's... If Stein is bringing along the compassion, Midnight is bringing the hate. Because Rachel has taken a pretty deep root in her, now that she's had to possess her a few times. And use, like, I think, maybe more power than Rachel has ever manifested in the real world before. And as such, I think Midnight's going to be in a pretty dark version. But of course, everything bleeds, as it were. We've discussed that, yeah, like, these effects are bleeding into each other. So eventually they're going to overlap and cross over. And that's going to get really rough. If you've ever watched the show Dr. Horrible, the song that I have keep playing in my head from this is the song at the end of it called Everything You Ever, which is basically this horrifically tragic song about how he got everything he wanted. And it's awful and terrifying and just, like, destroys me, like, in my soul of souls. And I'm really excited to do it to all the PCs, because I think we're going to see some very interesting sides of them. We're going to see what these PCs want beyond survival, beyond just what make them happy. We're going to find that out. And then I'm going to break it in front of them. And yeah. So there's going to be some very interesting conflict between, first of all, Stein and Rachel specifically. Like, these two are basically the gods of this creepy world. Actually, that's a good point. I will link this song. Yeah, so they're basically the gods of this creepy world. They're the ones running the show, almost. So they're going to be kind of battling for the souls of Cecil Road, because everyone else is caught in it too. Like, the entire town has been sucked into this maelstrom effect. And just dropping the song in chat. There you go. So there's gonna be a lot of other people in there, including, like, I wonder, like, people like Isaac, who Stein fucking hates, and Rachel just wants to torture all of them. But if Rachel isn't there, that place is kind of nice. It's a nice little escape. So I think even if it ends, there might be some bad things happen, like people choose to stay, or people physically can't leave, or things like that. The other thing that's going to happen is that there is another really powerful psychic force, like psychic will, kind of coalesced in a nearby location in London, that's the thing that makes Tudor want to be king. And you best believe that, as, like, Tudor's psychic powers are, like, drawn from this in some ways, from the crown he wears, so he's resonating with it as well. Which means that the... what was it? I called it Empire, I think. Did I give it a name? Untitled. Yeah, Britannia rules the snows. So yeah, I think it's Britannia or Empire is probably the name of this will. That's going to be resonating, and definitely going to be, we'll see that cross into Tudor's reality. And probably hit him quite hard, because it wants to kill everyone. Yeah, because it wants to reinstate the Empire. The Empire being the British Empire, where it colonizes everything, and yeah. It does that by killing everything, because it's dead. Rachel wants to torture everyone and everything. Britannia wants to kill everything, to subjugate it. And yeah, it's all a bit awful. Meanwhile, Lux just wants to run the roads, stuff like that. Ooh, that's a thing. Thing I hadn't considered, but very much could happen. Superpower... Britannia wants to lure Tudor back to London, right? To loose this giant-ass snowstorm of doomsday weapon thing that they have there. Building and building and building constantly in this post-apocalyptic world. Which is probably just a side effect of the actual doomsday weapon. Just happens to be it's surrounded by snow. And it was supposed to be released by a physical psychic. Normally I was going to say that would require him to be there, but there's a giant-ass window open into the maelstrom in the middle of Cecil Road that Tudor is in the middle of, which definitely allows for reaching across the physical plane And maybe I can dupe Tudor. Britannia can dupe Tudor into unleashing it from where he is. Because he has access to the Maelstrom. I'm intrigued. But yes, meanwhile, anything with any sort of psychic talent is being drawn to Cecil Road like a beacon. Which means the Ice Witch, which means Britannia, which means Dr. Tessia is, you best believe, on his way, or their way, with his entire army of freaks. And speaking of crazy, weird, physical crap happening, if a person has, the bleeding effect was discussed. So if a person, say, has horrific nightmares of turning into a monster from some horrendous mutagen called frostbite in their system, if they dream that, much like in the Matrix, it will start happening to them in real life. Yeah. You die in the Maelstrom, you die in the real world. You mutate in the Maelstrom. Your body is not left unchanged in the real world. So, mull on that. But yeah. Just trying to think how to give every character the things they want most. So for instance, I know Lux wants to be free. She cares about Tudor and she likes being an authority, but I think Lux, most of all, in anything, she wants freedom in the open road. She wants a car, a big engine, and a road that never ends. And probably a friend to chat to on the way. And I think if she had to choose anyone, she would choose her idealized version of Midnight. The one who isn't possessed by a ghost, and who actually she thinks cares about her. From what we've discussed previously. And ruining that for Lux is going to be quite easy, because you either ruin Midnight, or you mutate Lux to where Lux abandons that of their own free will, or just generally can't do it anymore, but becomes chained by, say, a psychic call of a wet on their weird frostbite stuff. Giving Tudor what he wants. I think we're gonna go have a little duck into memories of Tudor that Tudor doesn't know he has. Things like, I think that Tudor lost most of, we've discussed this on stream before about, what was Tudor like before he found the crown? And Joe was like, I think he came from a border town. Sorry, no. And I don't think that was meant as, I just haven't really thought about who he was before the crown. But I think that we can actually take that fictionally and say that Tudor doesn't remember who he was past the crown. Because the Britannia took it away from him. They took his old life and gave him a new one. They made him king by scooping out whoever Tudor was before. And I think we're going to give him, the obsession that's defined his life. He'll wake up and think he's king of a prosperous world, that he's succeeded, he's led his people to great prosperity. But I'm going to give him bits of his old life as well. His childhood friends are around him, parents he doesn't remember having, stuff like that. And we'll see how that plays out. Because I'm quite curious to see, when confronted with that, when Tudor remembers these people that he used to care about, who didn't worship him, but liked him, just wanted to be friends with him. Well, which side does he choose, right? Midnight, because I didn't know what to do for Midnight at all, so I had to talk to Chip about this one. I had to ask a few questions. And basically her answer was, imagine the movie The Devil Wears Prada, and take out the fashion. She wants to be Meryl Streep's character out of The Devil Wears Prada, just not in the fashion industry, which I think is fucking amazing. And yeah, I'm very excited for that. Because Midnight's fucking hilarious in that way. She just doesn't give a fuck. But her fantasy will turn to a nightmare much, much faster than anyone else's. because, yeah, she brings the nightmare. The nightmare is flowing out of her into everyone else's dreamland. And, you know, Rachel thinks that Cecil in some way liked Midnight, which basically means that Midnight's fair game. Not to mention she has a bit of a crush on Stein. I don't think jealousy is an emotion that Rachel will take well to. And finally, Stein. Stein, I think, will actually probably see through his fantasy the fastest. I don't know what I'll give him, but I think, just because of the way Stein is, I don't think he'd fall for it. I think he'd immediately know that this is fake, this isn't real, this isn't the world that he lives in. And I think we'll peel that back to find, like, him in the Maelstrom and his battle with Rachel for the souls of Cecil Road. And then we're going to have to find out who's going to live and who's going to die. Who's going to have their souls sucked into the singularity of Cecil Road, this crazy black hole of emotional soul energy. And we'll also get to see whoever wins controls that. And that is not going to be not powerful. Especially depending on who gets caught in it at the end. I'm very excited. It's going to be very fun. But, with that, let's advance some fronts. Let's have a look at our fronts and see if anything needs to change. I've talked a lot about other stuff because, frankly, it felt more relevant today to not talk about that kind of thing. Yeah. This has definitely happened, by the way, because they're all going to be out for like 6 hours, and the stuff's just be running and overheating, and it will blow up. So, I'm going to tick that. Boop. Done. Happened. When they wake up, those machines have just detonated, like, exploded. A few people will have died. Yeah. Turns out when you, like, knock an entire town unconscious for 6 hours in a place that's falling apart, things go wrong. This can't happen, because she physically can't get to him, unless she sends him at him. This physically can't happen right now, so I'm not really interested in this one anymore. I don't think that'll play into anything. Oh, let's have a look at our stakes questions quickly. Who was Rachel? Still not entirely sure. Which court member will Cecil make an example of? Irrelevant. Why does the man behind psychic hate Cecil? We know that because he sold her to Dr. Tessia for probably the technology that makes his control panel work so well. Final function of Cecil's control panel? Don't know. What will fix Preed? Nothing. He's dead. Are there any other doctors out there? Yes. Yes, we know that. There's a bunch at Wintermute Association. What can't you do without access to the panel? He can't keep Cecil Road running. Probably indestructible, maybe she doesn't technically exist. She was driven off because she's still... Rachel can be defeated. It requires the augury move and being able to pin her down. Which probably requires 2 psychics working together doing augury, one to locate, one to contain. So if Stein and Tudor can necessarily agree on something, or for instance, Stein could work out how to make his crazy augury machine work properly, he could probably do it. She has an advantage in that she can't be killed with bullets. But she can be hurt, like, the same, like, psychic senses allow you to perceive emotion, essentially. She is pure emotion. Like, she's just an emotional being. She's just anger and hate and despair and insanity made flesh. Not flesh, made cohesive. So if you can, like, either unpick her or squish her using augury, you can destroy her or defeat her. Can definitely contain her. We'll see. Actually, that's a good stakes question. I like that stakes question, so we'll put it in. Oh wait, I don't want to do that one. Do select move. Control C, Control V. Can Rachel be destroyed against her will? Like, the only thing sustaining her is her will, so is the only way to beat her by making her lose will? Somehow? Possibly? I think Sue's asking, so Stein has the high weird stat, can he also take over Midnight's body? I don't believe so. I think Rachel has spent however long she's been here learning some very specific psychic abilities that are a result of her well, now there are two of them, but her previously completely unique condition of being a ghost, basically. And also the strange things done to her by Dr. Tessia. Also, every psychic is different in some way. Like, they all have subtly different abilities. For instance, Stein can read the, like, emotions of things. Like, he can pick those off of stuff. Whereas Tudor has a more, like, wide-ranging, just sense for the universe. Alright, small world, big egos. Rourke's perversions. I don't think Rourke's going to wake up, but we won't cross that off yet. This actually will happen. I'm going to take this off, because, I'll tell you why, he's trapped in his fantasy. His fantasy is where he's with Lux, currently. He's got the girl he thinks is pretty and cool, in a life that he thinks is ideal, so he confesses to her there. And that will happen if he comes out of the thing. So hard. Parcher, we'll see what happens with you. Ella and her crew, irrelevant. You are very dead. Which makes me really sad, because I really enjoyed playing you, Ella. You were very fun to play. You're a really cool character. But, look at all of your NPCs through crosshairs. And when the time comes to brutally rip them apart, you best get eviscerated. Alright, Wintermute. I think this one kind of is happening. They're headed for... This is actually now kind of, this has kind of become an invasion. Yeah. I think Dr. Tessia could jump a lot of these steps if he could get a hold of the raw material that is currently floating in, Cecil Road. Just because, yeah, superpowers, essentially. Cool. That doesn't advance particularly. We'll see if it does. Homefront. Nothing's changed here. Is any of you dead? Two hit the plants. Probably should do a front of that, but don't think it's going to be quite relevant at the moment. Yes. That happened. That was the booming voice in his head. Boom. Border town is empty. She's leaving the blizzard. You best believe that East Harrow is floating around in there, and he's gonna come at Tudor. Like, so hard. Ella was fun. It was one of the... It's weird. It's like, she was one of probably the NPCs I had the clearest idea in my head of who she was. Like, this very clear idea of, like, she was kind of... I imagine her a bit like Furiosa in Mad Max. Like, taken at a very young age by some warlord, and then basically, like, proved herself a fucking firebrand, turned around, murdered him. I imagine, like, the shotgun is a memento of his. Like, this warlord she killed for his position. Like, it doesn't fit her character to have a shotgun called Betsy. It was a kind of a joke, but I think it's actually a thing of, like, it reminds her of where she's come from, what she's overcome, and also, like, possibly the fragility of her power. It's like one gun. It's this little shotgun. That's all that keeps her in charge. I think that's... I had this really interesting idea of this person who has basically, like, overcome a pretty horrific background. And probably seen some awful shit done to a lot of people. And just, like, went, fuck you. I want to be the best. You're physically not good enough to stop me. Okay. And then, yeah, she led them to Cecil Road, where she unfortunately met something stronger and far, far crazier than her. So, why are people going to the Blizzard? We know that because there's stuff to get there. Does anyone else know about the Will of Britannia's plans? Meh. What's holding... I know what's holding the storm in place now, actually. I believe it is Excalibur, essentially. Ella was killed by Rachel possessing Midnight. Midnight proceeded to, after she got knocked on her ass by Ella in their sparring match, Rachel jumps up in Midnight's... Rachel overtakes Midnight's body, jumps up, like, destroys people using, like, tattoos that, like, slide off her body like swords, battered the shit out of a bunch of guys, and then, like, actively went about breaking Ella apart. Yeah. With horrific physical strength, so powerful it broke Midnight's body repeatedly. Like... the way that Midnight functions in, I suppose, miasma mode is that she literally just destroys her body by ignoring its limitations. Yeah. This one's going to be interesting. It's probably the closest we've reached to a final one. Actually, here's the thing. If Tudor can be duped into kind of his coronation and like accept, I think the coronation is kind of like accepts the will of Britannia into himself and becomes it, then Britannia raises an army. Basically happens like, if Tudor just turns around and auguries this place, if he can overpower Stein, he could claim it. And just, yeah, like, change all that soul energy, put it back in the bodies, and have a bunch of puppets. Very easily. I don't think Ella's soul particularly survived. Like, the majority of people scatter upon death. We only know of two exceptions. One is Rachel, the other, who is a powerful psychic, of which we had no indication Ella was. And the other is East Harrow, who had a miracle done on him by a powerful psychic. To survive the Maelstrom, I don't think anyone wants to survive in the Maelstrom. Like, it's destroying the people who are there. As for I liked Ella, she deserves a good story ending, Sue. I liked Ella too. Well, that's the thing about this game, and about all kinds of role-playing games, is that just because your character is well thought out and interesting and all those kinds of things, they don't deserve shit. Especially in Apocalypse World. What you deserve and what you get are two separate concepts. Because it's a horrible place. And while Ella probably deserved a more interesting ending, she got death on the side of the road. Because the only people who matter in this world, to me, are the PCs. They deserve interesting endings. And they'll find them here. Ah, dear. Can the ice quitch become more kind? What should take from our victims? Does she know any of the PCs? Yeah, nope. Ooh, actually, does she know any of the PCs? She could be said childhood friend of Tudor. That could be interesting. I don't know. I like the idea of that. What do the researchers of Wintermute need? Where the researchers get? We know where the researchers get their specimens. They intend to get them from Cecil Road. Whether the PCs agree with Dr. Tessie's ideals, unknown. What does the Frostbite virus do? We know that. It mutates them into his kind of freakish army, optimizes them for cold weather living. And it's also a trial run for Dr. Tessia perfecting themselves. What happens? Someone affected by both Frostbite and the miasma? Unknown. We might find that out in the next session, if any of it gets unlocked. What is about Wintermute? There's a psychic beacon. I think it's just Dr. Tessier. I think Dr. Tessier is a psychic himself. So I think that's all that matters. Not necessarily in the same league as everyone else, but he's done specific things himself that allow him to do these sorts of stuff. Will Tudor accept Wintermute exchange for medical supplies and expertise? Half, yes. I mean, Ella may be back. She may be return as, like, in someone's fantasy, and, like, the memory of her will definitely persist. Like, the Maelstrom is like like a swirling void of, like, emotion and memory. That's all it is. Just that power can be used at times. But she won't necessarily... She won't be there. Like, all that is there is the past. What was Ella. There is nothing that is or will be Ella. There's no future of Ella anymore. There is... The last thing that is recorded in the Maelstrom of Ella is the moment she died. And the only thing going forward to that is the memories of the people. They can fantasize in their little locked away corners of this portal and maybe recreate her using the memories of the Maelstrom. And that might be different, but that's not her. It's a reflection. So maybe she'll be back. Maybe Midnight will have her as a bodyguard in her fantasy, because she respected Ella. Or maybe Tudor will have her as a daughter because he liked her, or like something, or Lux will have her as like a friend because she thought she was a fellow badass. Something like that. But Ella's essence is kind of lost. Unless one of the PCs does something really crazy. Because I said, the Maelstrom scatters and reforms to form souls, right? So if, say, a PC could find the scattered parts of Ella and go, they could put her back together. Her soul, anyway. But they'd have to find a body for her. And hers isn't really an option. Like, at all. In any way. It's kind of fucked, honestly. But yeah. Cool. Alrighty then. I think that's about it for today. Yeah. I'm really excited for tomorrow's session. I think we're going to get some really interesting things happening. I'm really excited to see some new parts of PCs that we've not seen before on screen. I'm really excited to, like, really, like, destroy their confidence. And, like when I tell Tudor, yo, your dream isn't your dream. It was implanted in you in a giant psychic will. I want to see whether he goes, well, fuck that. That's not my will. I'm going to be my own man. Or whether he's like, well, okay. I want to revive the Empire. The Empire needs me. This is my solemn duty. And it's like, time to fight. We'll see. It's gonna be some very cool things. And yeah, like, Midnight facing her demon. Lux facing her infection. And Stein facing himself almost, like his own. He has to step up. He has to be the hero, or people gonna die. Which I think puts the clock on Rachel. Because she wants to be in charge for Dr. Tessia, right? Because if she's angry at Cecil, she's angry at Dr. Tessia too. Anyway. So, thank you all for coming. If you're watching this on the Reddits, there is a link in the chat there to go to the my subreddit and highlight stats for the next session. Make sure people get XP for all the things they do, because it's going to be very interesting. Do feel free to vote with your heart. It's going to be weird. As if you're on the YouTubes, it will be down in the comment section below. Do come back tomorrow. We're going to be starting hopefully around 8ish. I might have to eat a bit early, but yeah. So hopefully around 8ish, maybe 8:30. I'll keep you posted of exact start times on my Twitter as best I can. Obviously, scheduling 5 people is difficult. If you can't catch it live, do feel free. I will upload them all over the next few days up on the YouTubes after the show is done. And yeah, if you have that link, do feel free to ask me questions about the stuff I've said here, the game, the way it works, the storylines, the plan, why I did certain things I did, whatever. If anything isn't clear to you, go ahead and ask me. You just need a Reddit account. I will literally answer every question. I fucking love that shit. Yeah. The only other thing to tell you is that on the 26th of September, yep, the 26th, the boys over at Encounter Roleplay, boys and girls, sorry, over at Encounter Roleplay, that's twitch.tv/Encounter Roleplay, are doing a 24-hour stream, which the last time they did that, I did a couple one-shots on there, where I played some Blades in the Dark, and ran some Blades in the Dark, and then I played some D&D, which I actually tweeted out the one-shot I played a few hours ago, if you want to go and look at that, because it was really, really good fun. And I will be returning to there to play more D&D and run more Blades in the Dark and do some other cool things. That's gonna be great. And I'm gonna troll like a crazy person and make another ridiculous character who has a secret identity of a health inspector. Yes, that was what my last character did on that show. So, until next time, thank you for coming. Please follow my stream. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Social media and all that shit down there. Have a lovely day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Ta-ra.